Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Beyond Her podcast. Thanks for tuning in again. Today I have a wonderful guest. My friend Ruth Devereaux is here with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Of course, I'm
excited.
excited.
For my podcast.
Thank you for bringing wine.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Edwin, for bringing wine. I'm excited. You're kind of like a celebrity, Ruth.
Am I?
Yeah, you kind of have like your own podcast going on.
Yes.
Little Miss Hollywood over there.
Thank you.
For the guests that don't know you, go ahead, give yourself a background introduction.
Totally. What do I say? I grew up in Colorado. I was born in England, actually, and then I moved to Colorado. And most of my that
is great.
Yeah, that's one of the things me and Neil have in common.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And then I grew up mainly in Colorado. I moved to LA in 2005 officially, but I had come previously initially to pursue acting, and then moved back home, and then moved back in 2005, and then came out here again for acting, and then transitioned, and now I work in production. But it was a long road to get to that. But yeah, now I'm a producer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, you're so cool.
Thank you.
I'm the coolest guest. I really do. All my guests are like really cool in their backgrounds. They're like, just don't ask me what I do because I'm not as exciting.
That's not true. That is not true. Do not lower your sale of yourself. Yes.
Never mind. I'm the coolest.
You are. Thank you. Tell us about yourself.
Right. Just flip the podcast on me. Just put the Femtell off.
I brought my logo.
It's weird. But I always like to start with my guests from the beginning.
Yeah.
I always like to talk about childhood, family, upbringing, because I always say that helps paint a picture for the viewers to see, like, what made you the person you are today.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's dive into that.
Yeah, so like I said, I was born in England. My dad was military. I have two older sisters. My mom and my dad, after England, we moved to Maryland. My parents separated when I was 12-ish. Best thing that ever happened.
Oh, really?
I think honestly, I think sometimes parents stay together when it's not healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually the worst thing you can do for kids, because then you set the bad standard for them thinking that's a normal relationship. So they separated when I was fairly young, which I thought was good. Probably not at the time, but as I grew up and recognized more of the issues that were in their relationship, I think it was the best thing for them to do. Yeah. We lived in Maryland until I was probably, I think I was about middle school age when we went to Colorado. Me and my sisters and my mom moved to Colorado. I don't know how deep we want to go here. There's
Let's go.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happened in between there, in our family. There's some trauma stuff that happened to my sisters, and then that took us from Colorado to Colorado after that.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, it looks like we have a lot to unpack. That's so growing up, child seeing because I remember when my parents were still together, and they were like, we don't deserve divorce. Divorce was never an option for a long time in the beginning.
Yeah.
I know how that impacted me as a child. Going back and looking at it now as an adult, how do you think, did that affect you at all in the mix of it all, or were you just kind of, I know some kids take it differently than others.
Yeah.
You know?
I think at the time I probably took it really hard because I was the youngest. And I think I wanted a father there, but he just wasn't the right type of father to be there. So I took it the hardest out of me and my sisters. My middle sister actually told my mom to leave. So my mom was a foreigner. English wasn't her first language. She didn't have an education. And my dad would tell her, you need me. You need me to support you to be able to survive.
Yeah.
And so she was really scared at that point to make that step. And my middle sister was like, we don't need him. Get rid of him.
Yeah.
And so when he left, it was there was another kind of growing from that too, because my dad was very I don't think religion is bad, but the way we were in religion, it was bad because we were part of a church that was very controlling, and I wasn't allowed to watch television. I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music. I wasn't allowed to even watch anything that wasn't approved by the church.
Yeah.
So we had to we could only have tapes that were approved by them. So when my dad left, my mom got a TV for the first time, and I remember the first thing I saw on TV was MTV, and so for seeing nothing
I'm sure,
to MTV, I was like, "Oh my God, this world is going to hell." So I think overall it was hard initially, but I think that I quickly like learned that it was good. The only bad thing was because my mom had to support all of us and my dad didn't really do anything. My mom was working 3 jobs.
Yeah.
And so she was consistently gone from the home. And so my sisters were more like helping take care of me at that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can imagine as a kid and like going through it all, not really like understand. Do you think you were kind of aware of it all situationally, or you were like, what's going on, or?
That's a great question. If I think back, I don't think I was fully aware of everything because I was the youngest, so I don't think I fully got the circumstances. I think we visited my dad once after he moved in Florida, and he was already engaged to another woman at this time. And so like for me, it was just like, oh, cool, this is like another person around. And then like, oh, then we go back to mom. Like I was just in more of like the process of like, oh, like we go here and then we do this and then we do that. We didn't see him that often. So my life really was structured around my sisters and my mom. And so like that just became my world.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So your sisters kind of took the upper hand in raising you.
They were there. No, I mean my oldest sister was no, like I don't. No, my sisters were there, but I feel like we were so close in age that it wasn't. It didn't ever feel like they were like caretakers.
Yeah.
My middle sister was a kind of a bully to me when we were younger, and then when we got older, she was like, "Well, that made you stronger. I did that on purpose." I'm like, "Lies, you're mean."
That is so funny.
Yeah.
And then so you moved England to Colorado.
Yeah. No, England to Maryland, then to Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So was the culture different in each like place that you had moved to, or?
Yeah, for sure. England was very different from when we moved to Maryland. I remember when we moved to Maryland, like I'm like half Asian kid and I have like a strong British accent. Oh. And so we were getting made fun of.
British accent?
Yeah.
That is so crazy.
Yes,
you lost it?
Yeah, I want it back.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I would say I'd be so much hotter if I had a British accent.
Doesn't matter what you say. You just
I'd be like, everybody would take seriously everything I say.
Exactly. How was it moving from Maryland to Colorado?
I think anytime you switch schools when you're a kid, it's kind of like a struggle in itself.
Yeah.
And so I think going from like in Maryland, the school setup was different where I was already in middle school. And then in Colorado, the structure was different. So I went back to elementary school, even though I was in middle school in Maryland. So it was like kind of like felt like taking a step back, having to get all new friends and like start over again. So I remember that process. And I remember, of course, as a kid, like the most important thing to you is like people liking you and fitting in and coming in again to a culture where everybody's predominantly Caucasian and like being different at all, you feel like you're standing out completely in every aspect.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
I have like dry throat.
You should drink some wine.
Yeah, I think that would help. So you moved from Maryland to Colorado, and then you moved to LA.
Yes.
What was the big change to LA?
Yeah. So when I was in Colorado, so I always say like the beginning part of me wanting to be in entertainment was I was driving by a gravesite with my mom, and I like looked at my mom, and I was like 10 years old, and I was like, Mom, I don't want to die and be forgotten. And so like she was like, oh, you won't, and I'm like, yes, I will. Like, so for me, like I think the thing that, and probably because I didn't have a TV for so long, so like I looked up to like movies and television, and like I thought it was so cool, and it was like these bigger than life stories that I wanted to be a part of it. And so in Colorado, I was listening to the radio, and they had a casting call for kids to come and audition, and it was a cattle call, basically anybody could come. And I told my mom, I was like, I really want to go. She's like, you do? And I was like, yeah. And you had to pay to go in. And she's like, okay, I'll do it. And so like she paid, I go in, I got chosen to go to like the next round. And then from that, they had managers and agents come out from LA, and then you audition for them. And if they chose you, then you move to LA. Yeah. So when I was a kid, I got picked, and I moved to LA for a year and pursued it. And at the time, I didn't know anything about the industry. I didn't know like the manager that had chosen me was like one of the top kids managers in LA, and like I was getting free acting classes, and like I had my agent was the same agent that had like Home Improvement. Do you know the show Home Improvement? Yeah. So one of the kids on that show was her client, and like so she was really big at the time. And I didn't know like this was such a big deal. And so after I didn't make it for a year, I was like, oh, I guess that's it. I guess I'll just go home now. And so then I moved back home and I finished out high school in Colorado. And then I moved back to LA and I was like, okay, I'm old enough now. Like, I understand the industry a little bit more. I want to go try. And so I came out to LA and I pursued it for another couple of years. And then I just started learning more of like, it was such a gypsy lifestyle and like you didn't have any control. Right. It was like they called you into auditions and then like if you did good or you did bad, you don't know. And then like, it was just like the opportunity was so sparse of like actually getting a chance at something. But I wanted to be in the industry in any way possible. So I decided I wanted to work at one of the studios. And every day for a year, I would just submit my resume over and over and over again because I didn't know anybody in the industry. I didn't have any ins. And I also didn't go to college. So I like had so many things against me, whereas like everybody that worked at the studios, they'd gone to an Ivy League college, which I found out later once I started working there. I didn't know at the time. And then I finally got a call back from a studio. And they were going to call me in. And then they ended up hiring somebody before I could interview. But I still sent a Starbucks gift card to the person that was going to bring me in. And so he remembered me. And then when that person left, he called me again. And he's like, I remember you. You should come in and interview. Yeah. And I luckily got the job. And that was kind of like the starting point for me in the industry. Because once you're in, it's easier to move around. So then I went from that job to like another job in the industry to another one. And I never really like told anybody like after I was hired that I didn't have a college education because I was so nervous that people would judge me for it. Yeah. Yeah.
Going back to where you said you were driving by a gravesite and you were like, Mom, I don't want to be forgotten. Yeah. What do you think brought you to that thought? And because that's pretty, how old were you at that point?
Like 10 years old.
10 years old.
I think it's because my mom talked about death so much growing up, honestly. She was like, I'm going to die. You better love your sisters. And she's like 30 years old. I'm like, calm down.
That is crazy. So that's what prompted you to be like, oh, I don't want to die.
I don't want to die. Man. I don't know, honestly. Like, even still, like, I still have like an intense fear of death. And I think it's because I don't personally know what happens afterwards. So it's like the fear of the unknown and the fear of like the ending of it all. Yeah. And like not knowing, does it continue or is it just done? Yeah. Yeah.
How old were you when you moved to LA, and were you by yourself when you moved?
I was 19 years old. And
when you first got casted?
No. That time I was probably like 12 years old. 12? And my dad came with me at that time.
Okay. Yeah. How was like your first taste of LA, like in industry?
When I was 12?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It was, for one, I flew out here with my dad. He had nothing planned for us. We had nowhere to stay. We had no car. He was supposed to be homeschooling me. He got like a book from my school, and like I think he would sit me down at a desk. He's like, read that. Yeah. I'm like, okay. So we ended up like living in this apartment. It was like a 2-bedroom apartment that the owner of the apartment lived in the living room. Another woman lived in the other bedroom, and then me and my dad shared another room. And so it was like this really crowded apartment, and we would take the bus everywhere. And so like it was such a stark difference from like living in a house with my mom and my sisters to living in a room with my dad and like taking the bus in this like very crazy city.
Yeah. Were they okay with you like jumping into the industry? Were they like kind of hesitant about it?
No, my dad said that he prayed, and he was like, if it's meant to be, she'll get it. Oh. And so then they felt like because it came through that was a positive push towards that. Yeah.
And what about the industry where you like, I don't want to do the acting part of this anymore?
There's no control. There's literally, you're just waiting for somebody to give you a yes. Like you have to not only wait for somebody to think that you might fit their project, but then you also have to go and audition for them, and you don't know like the standard. Like even now that I've produced and I've been in the casting room, like it's not the best actor that gets it. Sometimes you have no idea why somebody's getting casted. You don't even they don't even know until they see somebody in a room. Like, and then if you're doing an ensemble, like, do they match with this person? Like, it's not the best actor, and like you just have to go to everything, and you have to hope somebody thinks that you would work for that. And then even if you get casted, there's no promise of that. Like there's just too many factors that for me not having control over. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. Yeah.
So that's what switched you into like the production side of it.
Yeah, because I think that, well, I thought the studios were going to be a little bit more creative. And then when I got into them, I realized it was still just a corporate job. And that was why when I started producing, I was like, oh, I get to be a part of the storytelling. I get to be a part of the visuals. I get to be a part of the decisions. And like that meant a lot to me because like I just wanted to, like, I wanted to tell stories.
Yeah. Was there like a particular, like, this is kind of the route I want to go, or did you just kind of fall into it and now you're here?
So the first movie I ever produced, I had no idea how. Like, I went to a friend and I was like, man, I think I want to produce. And she's like, oh, yeah, you should totally do that. How do you do that? And I'm like, I have no idea. And then the next day she had dinner with another person that was like, hey, I just wrote this movie and I'm like, I got the funds for it, but all my producers are men and I need a female because the story is about women. The next day, and she's like, I have the perfect person for you.
Wow.
She introduces me to him, and then he brings me on the team, and like that was my first producing job.
As a producer, what is your role in like the whole?
Yeah, totally. So it depends on the project. Like with the film, like I was just starting off, so I probably didn't have as big of like, but I was a part of like finding locations, hiring crew, even like in post-production. Like I remember one of the most interesting things was we were in post and we're doing sound design, and they were like, oh, the bird in the background sounds too happy for this scene. And I'm like, oh my God, we do that too. Like it's every nuance where you're creating this like this story or this experience for people, and every piece of it, from the lighting to the sound to like everything. And so you get to be a part of that. Now I'm more in the music video world, and that is, we do everything. So that's finding locations, that's dealing with budgets, that's hiring crew, that's hiring actors, that's dealing with posts, that's dealing with locations and contracts and everything. So it's like every piece of it we have our hand in.
Okay. Was it something that you had to build up to and build credibility for as you grow to be able to like get projects, or is it kind of like you know a person who knows a person who knows a person? In
the industry, it's more like you know a person who knows a person who knows a person. So what happened is after I produced the first film, I decided I wanted to do this independently, and so I was like, I know that I need to like save this much money, and I know like for me, like if I just get like a free apartment, then I'm set, because if like as long as my rent's paid, I'm okay. So I made sure that was in line, and as soon as I did that, I quit my corporate job. And I remember going even to my boss, and I was like, I'm going to quit. And they're like, why? And I'm like, I'm doing this, this, and this. And my boss at the time said, well, we're just about to promote you. Like, why would you leave? And I'm like, this isn't what I want to do anymore. And then even at my like going away party, they were like, oh, Ruth's going to end up like walking her cats like around like, I was like, I might, but it'll and be if fine. I do. But so then after I left, one of the producers that was on the movie with me is now my producing partner, and we just connected really well when we were working together. And he was like, hey, like me and my dad have been writing scripts for like 20 years together, and like I would love for you to read them and like see what we can do with it. And I think he's an excellent writer, and him and his dad. And so then we kind of partnered together, and his sister came on too, and we formed our own production company. We made a proof of concept for one of the scripts that we love, and we were trying to shop it. And then the pandemic hit, and everything shut down. Yeah. And so so then everything kind of like stopped for a while. And then when it started picking back up, my producing partner had worked with the director that we work with now. And he was like, would you want to come on and do this music video? He was like, you get paid like literally like, I think it was like $200. I was like, sure, whatever, let's do it. And we did everything, and our budget was like this big, and I was like downloading files and overseeing COVID and like overseeing crafting and dealing with PAs, and like we did everything. Like between the two of us, we just split like what now we have crews to do. And that was the first video, and then it just kept gaining traction. We kept getting bigger bands and bigger budgets, and then now we're working with incredible budgets and incredible like artists in their own right in the genre. And our director is like insanely, like he's just gotten like so much better at like his craft. And like now what I would think when I look at our music videos now, it feels like a short film in a way, because we tell stories through it. Yeah.
I think like hearing your story now, like from where you come up, it sounds like smooth sailing, but I'm sure that's not what it was at all.
It's still not, honestly. And I think that anybody that takes a route that's like not the guaranteed route, or not the like 9 to 5 where you're just getting a paycheck, there's always going to be ups and downs. There's days where I'm like, shoot, I don't have anything I can do today. Like, what am I going to do? Like, or I don't know when my next production's coming up, or like, okay, so like I'm doing this now, but I want to do this. Like I got to keep pushing this. Like there's so much more of the unknown that you deal with when you take a path less traveled versus like a set end path that's like you're just doing a job.
Yeah. You're an entrepreneur, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you are. Is that like a path that you've seen your like traits in, as you've grown up, or you're like, that's just kind of like where I fell into, and you just roll with the punches?
Honestly, I feel like the path that probably led me that, because like I don't think that I would have gone that route if it wasn't for like my first adult relationship. I think the person that I was with when I was younger really kind of like set my path for that, where he was like, do this and focus on this and we got to do this, and like, and my brain was still young. I was only like 19 years old at the time, so my brain was getting wired in the way of like, oh, like okay, well, we got to do this, oh that makes sense, like da da da.
Yeah.
So like I feel like that's what shaped me into like, no, I can do more, no, I can do this, like not without fear by any means. I think that everybody that like sees the outcome or sees like the results of something, they think that you just did it, and like you're like, no, there's fear like along the way, and there's risk along the way, but you just have to do it.
I think seeing Hollywood and like the whole like the industry that you're in from the outside, it's definitely looking glamorous. What are some harsh realities that you have?
It's not like that.
It's not like the movies.
It's definitely not like that. You see like a 3-minute music video, 4-minute music video, that took us months to put together. That took us days of filming. That is like, you're seeing a snapshot of like different pieces that took so long to come together.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're not hearing the problems that go along with it or the solutions that have to come. Like I have a saying, or not a saying, like I always say on set, I'm like, okay, we've done everything we can do. Now we're on set. Don't bring me any problems, bring me solutions. If there's anything that's wrong, we just have to find a solution for it. So if that problem comes to you, you come to me with a solution, because people love to complain and they love to say like, this is wrong or this happened. Da, da, da. Okay, great. How do we fix it?
Because it's like what, a 3-minute music video, but how many days does it take to shoot a 3-minute?
It depends. It depends on the setups that we have. Like one that like, the more elaborate or the more like changeovers, like it's going to take longer time, or the more money you have, that's going to take longer time. Generally it's probably 2 days, but it can range from 1 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a female in the industry, do you think that's kind of, has it been like advantage, disadvantage at times? Is it kind of like flip-flop depending on who you're working with? I
think when I worked in a more corporate structure, there was probably a little bit different. I think because now I get to choose who I work with, right, I get more control over. If somebody is a way that I wouldn't want to be around, I wouldn't hire them. I wouldn't work with them again. Like I get to choose the energy I bring around me now. I think that was another thing too. When you're stuck in an office, you have to accept your surroundings. You have to accept the people that have been hired by other people, and you have to deal with them and like work with that. Whereas like now, like I have the ability to go like, oh, I didn't like working with this person, I'm not going to hire them again. Yeah. Oh, this person hired me, but I didn't like the way they handled this, I'm not going to work with them again. Like I can control so many more of that structure. And I do feel very lucky in the fact that my producing partner and the director, they're both men, and like I'm at the table with them, and they do listen to me and they hear me, and like they respect me. I don't think every woman in the industry gets that same benefit that I do. And I hear many stories of it not being that way. Yeah.
Have you ever had to deal with that personally?
I think I've heard, like I've dealt with probably more comments that are unacceptable in the workplace that are not like mean, but like derogatory, or like there's something they would never say to a man that they would say to you because they feel safe in saying it to you because you're a woman. Yeah.
And when you finally got control over it all, you were probably like, fuck yeah.
I don't think I even realized for a while.
Really?
I think I was just moving forward, that I just was like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. I don't think I stepped back for a long time to go like, oh, wow, like this is what we're doing.
Do you ever look back at your career now? Because, I mean, it sounds like, how many years have you been in the industry now?
I guess my first job was, I mean, if we start from like the first like corporate job I had in the industry, I would say like 15 years.
That is insane.
Yeah.
So you had a long journey, and then look at you now.
Yeah.
Your own boss.
I definitely look back sometimes, and I think it's more at pivotal moments where I'm like, oh wow, this is so great. Like, but I think it's looking back at the very beginnings. If you told me when I was leaving or when I was first moving to LA, like this is where I was going to end up, I wouldn't. I would have been like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now this is the part that I was excited to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Love.
I love this topic. Ask me.
I think essentially everybody wants to fall in love, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love you and Crew's story because I remember Crew being so picky, you know, always like picky in a sense. I don't want to say picky because it's just standards at the end of the day. He has high standards for the women that he dates. And I remember like one time we're like, okay, Crew, well, like what are your like non-negotiables? Like what are your standards? And he named some of them and I was like, oh my gosh.
Wait, what did he say? Tell me everything.
Okay, he was like, well, we're like, what are your pet peeves? And he's like, they have to close the cabinet doors all the way. Do you close the cabinet door?
Absolutely. That would annoy the crap out of me. Well, I don't understand the problem.
Okay, you guys are perfect. Crew Neil, he's business partners with my boyfriend. Yeah. And I remember meeting and talking to him and like, you know, I would always like, you guys like 40, right? 40? Can I say your guys' age in the podcast?
40, I'm 43 now.
43. And at the time, I think it was like 42. 41, and I was like, well, when are you gonna like what are your non-negotiables? When are you gonna find a girlfriend? And we were all kind of getting concerned. He's like, well, she can't have like hair on her arms. You have hair on your arms?
Not really.
Not really. No. Okay, cool. All right.
That's where we're going.
You wouldn't beat no.
Takes the ruler out. Nope, you're still good.
You passed the test.
He said that you can't have dirty shoes. He hates dirty shoes.
I have dirty shoes.
Okay.
So my tennis shoes are very dirty, and I knew this was a thing of his. But when you're in love, some things are overlooked.
Some things slide. Yeah, some things he let slide. I remember him naming all of these things, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's never gonna find love. He's gonna be forever alone. Like, and then you came along, and I was like, it's so crazy.
I want to hear from the other side though, because I feel like I tell my story all the time, but I haven't heard it from your guys' POV of like seeing it happen.
Well, I mean, I just think when you came along was just such perfect timing. But it's crazy because I would always be like, oh my gosh, like when is he gonna find someone? You know, like you're only getting older, like time is only passing. But to be able to
got one foot in the grave, babe.
Come on now. But it was kind of like we were pushing and pushing and pushing, and he never dropped his standards. So to see like you come along, and I'm like, okay, these women do exist in my life, you know? How does it feel to find love at like
38? Yeah, no, yeah. I talk about this a lot because obviously I've been in other relationships, but I always used to think like, well, I used to ask people like, how do you know? Like I was in a 13-year long relationship, like
before Crew.
Yeah, I was in a long-term relationship, and I even in that time I was like, well, how do you know? Like I mean, like I care about this person, but like there was never like a clear of like, oh my God, this is my person. And so when I met Crew
Neil,
like
Crew Neil,
bedroom name. I'm sorry, a little weird
and I met Crew.
But when I met him, and I remember our first date, like first we were like chatting beforehand. Okay, let me back it up. So my brother goes to the gym, and he's been going there for 10 years, and he's always asked me to go, and I've always like put it off. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go, and then he like signs me up for a month of the gym and doesn't even call me and tell me. He posted on Instagram and tags me in it and says, now you have to come, and I'm like, okay, I'm coming, I guess. And I remember before my first class with Neil, he was like, oh, you're gonna think he's so cute, like all the girls think he's cute. And I was like, you don't even know me, like I don't know what you're talking about, you don't know my taste. And then Neil walks in and I was like, oh my God. But then I won't go into the whole story because I'll be here forever talking about it, but we went on our first date, and I had gotten to a point in my life too where I was just like, I'm gonna be alone. Like I was 38. I was like, I had 2 cats. Like, I'm like, I'm signed, sealed, and delivered. I'm alone. And so then we go on the date, and it was just like everything just kind of like fit so well. And like there was, you know, like sometimes on first dates there's that uncomfortableness, there's the quietness, and like it just never existed with us. And I texted my best friend as soon as we ended. I was like, this might be the perfect guy for me. And then it just like kept getting better and better and better. And like every time we spoke and like saw each other, there was never, it just felt like we had known each other for so long, but then not at the same time. There was like this knowing instantly. And it just felt so quick that I was like, oh my God, this is my person. Oh my God, this is how it's supposed to feel.
Crazy.
Oh my God, this is the no questions. Like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. And it's so hard to explain that to somebody unless you felt it. Now I remember everybody telling me like, oh, when you know, you know. And I'm like, I don't know what that means because I hadn't experienced it. So to experience it for the first time at my age, I didn't ever think like that would come, or like I didn't know that it would feel this way.
Yeah. And being in a long term, how long did you say? 13 years?
13 years, yeah.
13 years before that, and
Yeah.
you never felt that with that person?
No, and like that we're still very good friends, and like I think what we had is a friendship, and we were young, and we were building, and like we were like we were becoming who we were gonna become.
He was the one that you were with at 19,
Yeah.
and up for
Yeah.
13 years. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what was the different feeling like when you were with him for the 13 years that you didn't feel until you had that first date with Crew?
I mean, you can like. We were just always friends. Like I feel like there was always like a family love. I also I think was looking for a father figure at that time, and he represented that for me. So he was very much like a father figure in my life, and still like even like I would say now I look at him more as family than anything else. Like it was what I needed, and it was who he wanted to be, that it just fit for that.
Yeah.
But it was never romantic. It was never like, oh my God, I love this person so much. Even like now I've had conversations with him where I'm like, oh my God, I love Neil so much. Like, he's just like my person. He's like, don't you think it's weird that we were together for so long and we never felt that for each other, but never recognized that? But I think people get into this like, this regular schedule of like, you're just going and it's just comfortable, and you just never step out to go like, wait, is this right for me? Am I right for them? Are they right for me? Like, you just kind of keep going.
What was that moment where you were like, wait, like we need to end this?
I mean, the first, like when we broke up multiple times in that time, like what should have been a sign at the beginning, right? So I think it was like the final breakup was just kind of like, yeah, like this is just, it's just not working out. And we didn't talk for maybe like a couple of months, and then we came back afterwards and we're like, listen, like we've been in each other's lives for so long, like we can still be friends and like be okay, because like we didn't do anything to hurt each other. We just weren't right for each other.
Yeah. And now you're in love.
I'm in love.
Wedding bells?
Yes.
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 Yay.
Yes.
Soon.
Let's announce it live on the podcast.
Let's announce it live. Let's set the date. Pick out the dresses.
As soon as she gets clean shoes.
As soon as she gets clean shoes. That's so awesome.
No, I mean, I think, I don't know when, but I like, there's no question of, it's not an if, it's a when sort of thing. Like, I know that this is my person. I know this is who I will be with forever.
Yeah. If you could describe that feeling, because like people always say, when you know,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, but what do you know?
I would
when
describe
you know?
it as, for the first time in my life, I don't have a question. It's not like, oh, is it, or what is, like, there's no, that I feel so comfortable in like just saying like, I can fall into this. I already know like we're going to go the distance. And so anything, and the thing is, so we haven't had any fights or any problems, but I know that even if something does come up, like, this is who I want to fight through it with.
I love it. Yeah. So there's hope, guys, no matter where you're at. Because I'm sure, like, there was like how you said, you're like, I have 2 cats, I'm 38, like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I had gotten to the point where I was fine. Like, I was like, okay, I'm happy by myself. I like living alone. Like, I was okay. Like, I liked my life.
Yeah.
And then he came along, and I was like, I like this life.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah,
Shout
seriously.
out, Rob.
Yep.
Shout out MTK.
MTK saved my life.
MTK Muay Thai saved me. I love it. Ruth, thank you so much for coming onto the
Thank you for
podcast.
having
I'm sure
me.
there's so much more that we could dive deep into.
Yeah.
I don't know why I got choked up on this.
Oh.
But your life is really so interesting, and Neil told me too. He's like, if you ask the right questions, like you'll get some good answers out of Ruth. And I didn't ask the best ones, but we'll have to do this again.
Oh,
We have
yeah,
to shoot
totally.
another episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys, if you guys want to hear more from Ruth, follow her. She has a podcast too,
I
actually.
do. Femme Tell All.
Femme Tell All, and then where else can they find you?
RN Devereaux at
At Yahoo.com.
I know, like,
She's like, my answer is money, but no win.
it's definitely not. Please don't try to find it.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Beyond Her podcast. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to hear some more of this. Just the stuff. It's good stuff here. Thanks.